Hello, you are welcome to another of our programs. Today is another module titled Ethics and Data Management as part of our program that started on visual analytics using Power BI and Excel. Today we'll be looking at data management and ethics. Specifically, we'll be talking about data ethics and data lifecycle, because the perception is that as data moves from one phase to another, it should be with some guidance. There should be some guidance that relates to privacy, security, and handling. What is data ethics? We want to look explicitly at what data ethics is all about this morning, and from there we consider what are some of the factors within it. So data ethics relates to the principles and processes that support the right, fair, and just collection, processing, analysis, and use of application of data, having an effect on human lives and society. The effect of data ethics relates to the following perspectives. Talking about data collection, data storage, data sharing and reuse, replicability, data re-identification and consent, unknown and emerging. Data lifecycle. The whole thing starts with data entry, either manual data entry or acquisition, or it was captured via devices or other means. When data is created, there must be some guidance. So within the life cycle of data, after being created, it passes through a level, because you are getting data, you are going to put it somewhere. Where you are putting it is the storage. So as data is being stored, security should be key. Backup and recovery should be key, because the source could be corrupted. There could be an issue with the source, so there should be something to fall back to, so that there is adequate protection for the data. Now, as it's being stored, the next phase in the life cycle of data is usage. Yes, it's been fetched, it's been stored, now it's being used. Now, while using it, viewing, processing, modification, saving, sharing must follow some guidance in agreement with the data owner, data user, and the processors. The owner, the processors, or the data scientist, in this case, whoever the person is. So there must be some guidance, some agreements that states the do's and the don'ts as relates to the data. Then after usage, viewing, the next level is archival. It has to be archived so that it can be accessed some other time later. Now, when data is being archived, protection is key. It must be archived in a place where it is protected and readily available for use as at when it is required. So this explains the reason why backup is key. And lastly, in the data life cycle is destruction. When it's done, you have archived it. In some organizations, the archival policy says 10 years, in some 5 years, in some 20 years. So depending on the archival policy of that organization. If the policy says it's 20 years, by 20 years, the data, everything that must have been captured, used, or that went through the life cycle within the 20 years must have been destroyed. Data collection. When we talk about data collection, we're talking about web scraping. 2 years back, web scraping, whereby data scientists and the rest and others scrape data from online sources for the process of uncovering some insight. All data scientists scrape data from online sources. There must be some guidance in this regard, so that the data fetched is being used as intended. Two-way violation too is something that needs to be considered. That is a breach between the data owner and the data scraper or data scientist. So these breaches is an issue. is really an issue, and I mean as such. So as data analysts, we need to be very careful while while making use of data, especially when it has to be, especially those that have contract agreements binding them. Now we have secondary reuse data. That is talking about the data that is being managed outside the primary use. In most cases, agreement covers primary use. So whenever it goes beyond the primary person, the primary use or the primary intention, then the owner of the data must be involved in this case. This explains why secondary reuse is not encouraged. It's not even encouraged anyway. So if it must be used, the consent of the owner must be sourced. Data storage. Data could be stored locally, could be stored in a third-party environment. It could be stored anywhere. The key thing must be it must be securely protected from either abuse or misuse. The storage must be a location where there is the risk of leakage or exposure, where the risk of leakage or exposure should not be stored in a place where the risk of leakage or exposure is a possibility. So there must be adequate risk assessment before taking care of where data should be stored. Sharing, reuse, and replicability. This includes questions about public data, like data from Kaggle, data from MCI, data from World Data, data from WHO, from different sources. Non-intrusive research. We talk of reuse, sharing, we are talking about data that are involved, for example, somebody in final year conducting a research. Whatever data that is being used in that level, a PhD student or a prof working on the research. So the value of data too must be considered, and frustration when attempting to reuse data too should be considered. When, if at all, data has to be shared, it has to be used or applied to something different from intended. Thank you.